Hi guys, welcome to another book review. So this video is going to be the first of my spooky season themed books that I have been saving in my stockpile, or have set aside specifically for this time. So the book that I'll be sharing with you guys today is by Elizabeth McNeil, and it's called The Doll Factory. I found this in the young adult section. I will say that there's a lot of pretty adult content in here, like violence towards women, violence in general, drugs, prostitution, that kinds of stuff, okay? This is based in Victorian times, and usually during that time period, we think of people being very reserved and button up. This kind of takes you into the darker side of stuff, including some of their like creepier traditions like memento mori. So for a lot of people who don't know what that is, or that it was a custom at the time, for example, if a child died, a baby, and the family wanted to remember the child, they would often have their portrait taken, and if their eyes were closed, if the baby's eyes were closed, they would paint on the eyelids as though their eyes were open. So they would walk away with this photograph, a memento mori, dead. Okay? So that was one of the creepier traditions that was held at this time. They do briefly reference it in here. It's not a main focus in the book. I just think it's like a cool, creepy thing that people don't really know about in the time period. Other things that were kind of creepy, there's a lot of experimentation on humans, animals, a lot of grave robbing, so they could steal the dead bodies and take it to the medical school so the students could dissect them and all kinds of stuff, right? So there's just a lot of dark underbelly here in the Victorian time period that a lot of people don't really know about or think about, because we're so used to books and movies about, society and that kind of stuff. So this whole book is pretty much based around characters who are part of the working poor during this time period. The main characters are two female twins. That's already scary right there. Every book that's got twins, especially girl twins, shining, think about it. So you have Iris and Rose. Iris has a deformed clavicle, which was a birth defect. And then Rose, she was all right until she contracted smallpox as a teenager, and now she's horribly disfigured, and to the point where she's blind in one eye, and her skin is pockmarked and just gross, right? Apparently she looks really, really deformed after she recovers from smallpox. So they are no longer identical. Initially, they kind of were, but kind of weren't. Then they're really not after that. So you have these two twins working in a doll factory, just doing what they can for survival. Then you have the other character. Well, there's I think about like five-ish main characters in there. Then you meet Silas, and Silas is super creepy. There's something really wrong with him. Though initially, the author doesn't really let you know that. But the more you read about Silas, the creepier he gets. He's a big fan of taxidermy. He likes to dissect animals. He enjoys dead things. All the hallmarks there of like serial killers, right, that we're thinking of. What's interesting in this book is that Silas becomes obsessed with Iris because of her clavicle, the way it looks, right? Like he becomes like obsessed with it, and he fixates on her. And so stalking behavior begins. Kind of reminded me a little bit of the show You on Netflix. So if you enjoyed that show, you might enjoy this book. Crime stuff. Again, this book. But it's interesting too, because in every chapter that focuses around Iris, you can see that she's totally oblivious. She has no idea really what's going on until it's like way too late, as is most of the time the case in those real life situations. And for me, I think that's what makes this book, like on a spooky scale, like a 7 out of 10, is because this is pretty real stuff. Like even today we hear about people being stalked and not realizing what was happening for that other person, or to even be aware to watch out for that other creepy person they thought they just saw in passing one time. And now it's too late. Now they're in a really bad situation. So I have to say the author does a really good job of building the suspense of like, oh God, what's happening? Like, what is he gonna do? Is someone gonna help her? Like, please, like, you know? So I have to say that that's a pretty successful thing that she does in the plot line. And I would say that another reason why I'm partial to this book is because I've always been like a fan of not just dark and twisty things, but also like things based in previous time periods of history, right? So the Victorian era, we tend to think, again, very prim and proper society stuff. And then here's this book that's all dark and twisty and based in that time period. I think this book is perfect for spooky season. It's a really easy read as well. I will say this, again, there is a lot of adult content in here, so this book is not going to be for everybody. And don't let like very young children read it unless they're pretty mature and can deal with a lot of this content, because a lot of it's pretty grown up. But again, if you have the time or want to read about this and actually see how it ends, because I'm trying not to spoil that ending here, read The Doll Factory. I would highly recommend it. It's perfect for spooky season. And until next time.